Hey guys, and today I'm going to introduce you to a tool called Markdown that's intended to make your HTML authoring and content editing experience easier. Now, why did I say content authoring? Well, this what is essentially a new language and a new way to write HTML. It just applies to content-oriented features that you might want to use when you're writing an article and marking up the content for that article. Markdown is a way to describe content-oriented items, but just take some of the labour out of marking them up. So, the best way to explain this is if you've heard of Sass or Less or Stylus or any of these CSS preprocessors, what they essentially do, what Markdown does, is you write a file, or in this case a subset of a file, in this new language. Then the Markdown engine looks at what you've written and then parses it and gives it to you as HTML. So when you write Markdown and you get the benefits that Markdown gives you, what is ultimately being outputted is just HTML. So right off the bat, there's no compatibility problems. So today I'm going to show you how to use Markdown when it can be used, give you some examples of using it, and give you some examples of where you can use it, because there are quite a lot of places around the web. What I think would be best is if we just dive into some demonstrations of me showing you Markdown, and then maybe it will become a little clearer. I also want to say that at the end of this video, basically, I'm gonna be using Drupal because Drupal has Markdown integration. You can install Markdown on your local system, have it sit there and watch your Markdown files, and have it parse them and generate the HTML for you. So Markdown's got nothing to do with Drupal. You don't even need to know what Drupal is to write Markdown, but we're gonna be using Drupal just because it makes some of the integration stuff easier. So just to get out of the way, at the end of the video, I'm going to be showing for any Drupal people how to integrate Markdown into Drupal, but it's not a prerequisite of this video. So just to show you, this is the page for Markdown. It's by Darren Fireball, and it's at darrenfireball.net/project/markdown. You can download the files here, and you can have the Markdown files processed on your computer, and then your computer will edit the HTML if you're just working locally. But in this example, we're going to be using it in Drupal installer, and Drupal's going to take care of the processing for us, but that's not directly relevant to what we're doing now. So I think what would be best, like I said, if I just dived in and showed you some examples. So again, you don't even need to know what Drupal is, but all you need to know is that this body area right here is somewhere that I'm gonna be writing code, and then when I click save, it's gonna be like saving your Markdown file, and then the Markdown processor through Drupal is gonna look at it and give us the Markdown. So you don't need to think about Drupal at all. All you need to think about when I click save is me telling Markdown, okay, I've saved this text file, and in this case the text file is this body field, and I want you to look at that, what I've saved, look at the Markdown, make it into HTML. So if you're not a Drupal person, don't look at this as a Drupal tutorial, although if you're interested in what it is, I would urge you to look at my other Drupal tutorials. So let's start off with some examples just to show you. This is like this body area here is like a HTML file. We can for example, do that just to show you that not playing any funny tricks here, and for all intents and purposes, this body field is just a HTML file like you'd author on your local computer, but that it supports Markdown. So we're gonna hit save and just show you that it is going to indeed output whatever we do. So we wrote a strong tag, and it's outputted that in a strong tag. Fine. So we know that this just takes any HTML and output it as we want, but it also takes Markdown. So how, for example, can we use Markdown to give us a strong tag around this element? Because Markdown, like I said, is about making your content authoring experience easier. Well, Markdown, instead of wasting all those characters writing a strong tag, all we have to do in Markdown to get a strong tag is put two sets of asterisks around what we want. Hit save, and when I hit save, think about this as it's just processing the Markdown file. And if I inspect that, we've still got the strong tag. So look at all the characters we've saved and all the time we've saved, but we've still got the same result. What else does Markdown support? Well, if we wanted this to be wrapped in an M element, like an emphasis element, we don't have to write M. We can write 2 underscores around the element, or the word, sorry. Hit save on that. Actually, I think it's, yeah, for an M tag it's 1 underscore. Process our Markdown file, and if we look there, it's given us an M tag. So already we're saving lots of characters and time by getting the tags that we want, but just in this short time. And like I said, when it's outputted, i.e. the files you'd deploy to a development server have already got the HTML that you want, so there's no compatibility issues. It's just a time saver for you. Okay, so what else can we do in Markdown? Well, if we wanted this something to be a list item, all we'd have to do instead of creating an opening unordered list tag, an opening list item, a closing list item, and a closing list tag at the beginning of anything we want to be a list item, we can just put a dash, process our Markdown file, and then if we look at that, and we've got the wrapping and ordered list element, the list item tags, and the closing list element. But all we had to do was write one dash, so you can see how already we're saving lots of characters. And if we want, it's a white space dependent language, so that means how many spaces you put is significant. So if you want something to be a sub-menu of that list item, we can just indent it and put sub-item. And as we see, it's created a list element inside of that other list element. So again, that's easier. We're saving lots on markup. Just going through some of the features here. What if we wanted to create a link in Markdown? Well, obviously we could just write the normal link text just to prove that any HTML works in Markdown. We could say, and not doing line styling is bad form, I'm just doing this to demonstrate the point. We can put any HTML we want in here, so Markdown will ignore it. So Markdown's not mutually exclusive. Markdown's not for structural things, it's just for content. So if we want to use HTML, the Markdown processor will just ignore it and give you the outputted file anyway. So for example, if we wanted to say background red, width 30 pixels, and process our Markdown file. I'm not quite sure why that's not working, but that should work. It should ignore the fact that Markdown and just process it. If I think about what's wrong, I'll go back and amend this later. But we're looking at Markdown, so what else can we do in Markdown? We've already seen quite a few things we can do, but what else is easier than in Markdown than it would be in HTML? So an example of that is links. So if we want to create a link in Markdown, all we do is put a pair of square brackets and a pair of ordinary brackets. So we put the link text that we want to be on the link itself in square brackets, and then in the ordinary brackets after it we put where I want it to link to. we can also put optionally in these brackets where what we want the title attribute of the link to be, and that's the tooltip. So we don't have to put title equals, we can just put it in quotes within the brackets. Process our Markdown file, and we have a link, and when I hover over it, it says tooltip. If we obviously look at what it generated, see how much easier that is, that little bit of code, rather than just writing out that HTML. So what else? Well, this isn't relevant here because Drupal does it anyway, so I'm not gonna show you. But in a normal HTML file, if you just put 2 blocks of text, it wouldn't put paragraph tags around them. But if when you're writing paragraphs in Markdown, you don't have to put paragraph tags. It just knows where paragraphs begin and end. So that's a nice feature. What else can we do? Well, if we want a horizontal rule element, a HR element, all we need to do is put 3 or more underscores. So save our Markdown file, and we have if we look in content, we have a horizontal rule element, if you can see there. So that's some of the things you can do in Markdown. So some of the other cool stuff that I'm not going to show you, but it's cool to note. It has a special syntax for linking to images. If you look in the documentation under the syntax, it can have automated things for if you want to create code blocks, which I'll show you in a minute. But it's got this cool syntax for images where you can more easily link up images. You just give it an exclamation point and then put path to the image in brackets, and it'll link it up. Okay, so I've shown you just Markdown in isolation, but where can you actually use Markdown on the web if you're not using it in your own projects? Well, one of the first places that came to mind was GitHub. GitHub is a place for sharing code. A lot of people have projects on GitHub, have their README files in Markdown format. So we can see this renders as a perfectly acceptable file. It's got a nice code block, lots of nice line spacing, embedded list. But if we look, if I edit this so I get the raw source, we can see it's just Markdown. And Git has something called Git flavored Markdown, where I can do specific things that mean something to GitHub. So, for example, if I want a code block, I can just say JavaScript and then indent the stuff that is JavaScript, and the GitHub's Markdown processor will recognize that and process it. Where else can you use Markdown? Well, my other example was CodePen. There'll be lots more, but on CodePen, if you it's a tool created by Chris Coyer for easily making demos and stuff. If you want to write HTML, one of the options you can choose is Markdown. So I can write Markdown here. And one of the things I didn't show you was for the different heading levels you get one more. So if I want a heading 1, I put one hashtag, and then, for example, test. And then what's nice about CodePen, obviously you're not going to be developing day-to-day in CodePen, but what's nice about it is you can, if you're using Markdown, you can click the word Markdown and hit this generated source button, and you see it has indeed generated us an H1. So if you're just learning and you're not quite sure what things are going to generate, that's definitely a good place to learn. Anyway, so that's the end of the non-Drupal section. Obviously, like I said, you can use Markdown on your own files. All you essentially have to do is download Markdown, run it, give it the path to the Markdown file, and tell it where you want it to output. And then every time you save the Markdown file, it'll look and generate the HTML. But for the next part of this video, I'm gonna show all the Drupal people out there just quickly how to set up Markdown in Drupal, because it's an ideal candidate. Because a lot of the times when you're outputting stuff in Drupal, it's just content that people are entering. It's not the structure, so therefore it's an ideal candidate for Markdown. So goodbye everyone who's finished watching now. I'm gonna get onto the Drupal part, so stick around if you're interested. Thanks for watching if you're leaving now. Anyway, so Drupal has something called input filters, and watch my previous screencast on input formats that I did for Drupal 6. But what they essentially are is it's a way to define what people can put into a field. And there's been a module created called the Markdown filter. It's got Drupal 6 and Drupal 7 support, and it just gives you the option to choose Markdown as an input filter. So this is at drupal.org/project/markdown, and all I did in my administration panel was, if we look, well, once the module is enabled, if you go to administer configuration and then text formats, it's not called input formats anymore in Drupal 7, it's called text formats. But if you just configure one of your input formats, and in my case I created a special one called Markdown here, if you just hit configure, and then that module will give you a Markdown option. All you have to do is select that, and then it will process anything you write in any content that supports that input format. It will process that into Markdown. So thank you for watching this video, guys. I'll put the links to Markdown and the Markdown module in the description. I hope you found this video a useful introduction to Markdown. If you like this video, please subscribe. Visit my website address, tom-rogers.com. It's down below. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.